Today on EdYouWell, we're talking to Sensei Susan, a lifelong educator, martial artist, and author who has spent her career helping both children and adults build confidence, focus, and self-regulation. Now semi-retired from the school system, she continues to teach through movement and mindset, running her own programs and writing books that reflect her passion and purpose. Let's dive into this inspiring conversation.
Welcome to the EdYouWell podcast, a show created for, by, and with teachers. I'm Alex.
And I'm Chelsea. Our goal is to share insights and connect with fellow teachers on how to thrive both personally and professionally.
Join us as we dive deep into the well of information filled with relatable tips, practical discussions, and ideas that go way beyond the classroom walls. Let's be well
and do well together. Welcome to the podcast, Susan. We are super excited to have you here to share your insights, your experience, and your wisdom.
Thanks for the invite. It's great to spend time with you talking about all these important things.
We are very excited to have you today, Susan, and we have a ton of questions, and I think we're going to have a very rich conversation. So I say, Chelsea, we just dive right into the questions here and see what pops out of the well.
Good plan. Susan, can you start by telling us a little bit about what you are doing right now? What kinds of programs are you involved in? I know you're teaching courses at the university. Tell us about what's happened in your life.
Well, right now, every day looks different for me. I do have a schedule, but I also have things that pop up and opportunities that come up that I'm able to integrate in my schedule. So I am a contract lecturer and faculty advisor at the local, university, working with students who are becoming teachers and supporting them in that and teaching a couple of courses and then supervising them on placement. I'm also running my karate dojo, teaching, 6 classes or so a week, and creating programs and going into schools and community groups where I'm integrating all of my passions, self-regulation, movement, physical literacy, using the martial arts as a vehicle for bringing all of that together and improving student wellness. And I'm also working on a couple of creative projects too. So it's a super exciting time for me because I feel like I'm given the opportunity to use all of the skills that I've developed in over 30 years in the classroom and in the dojo over 30 years also. And it's pretty exciting to be able to collaborate with people from different backgrounds and in different positions in the community and in the education setting too.
That sounds awesome.
It sounds awesome. And that's something that we talk a lot about is how much richer of an experience it is as a teacher when you're able to integrate your passions into teaching. And I mean, it's very clear for you that that's just really outward spiraled into so many different opportunities for personal and professional growth for yourself, and then also for all of us around you. So if you could talk a little bit more with us about how that teaching world and those passions came together and what kept you kind of moving forward with it and inspired in that process.
That's a great question. And, it's something that I talk about often with my university students too, is to, that teaching isn't just the, 9 to 4 or 8 to 4 day, that it can carry out in so many different directions too, that, I encourage anyone in education, students and teachers to pursue like their passion project alongside their day job, and to even start small and let it evolve organically. And Alex, you would know this with some of your involvement with professional development, coordinating that there are lots of opportunities within teacher unions and also with the board itself to become a leader in a not the usual route, not going, into administration, but you can become a leader within your school, a leader with curriculum without being assigned a board position. So that's sort of what started me is I saw some opportunities that the union provided or offered to apply for, grants to be able to collaborate with other teachers and create a resource or have some meaningful discussions that would guide our daily teaching. And, that sort of really kick-started the path that I took to creating resources, publishing a book and producing a DVD, and then being able to share that work throughout the province and even going out of the province to share the work.
Well, I have to respond to that. The gifts that the association or, the union has provided to both of us, because I've also benefited from grants and from learning programs whereby you're encouraged to follow your own personal learning and you're given that autonomy to be able to explore opportunities and things that you need to learn more about, but want to learn more about. And so I think actually when we really got to know each other a little bit more was through that common route that we were both taking. And you hit the nail on the head when you said that those were leadership opportunities. Some of the best learning I've gotten around leadership has been from my association. And I've been able to share that with friends and colleagues over the years. And leadership comes in many shapes and sizes. So you have definitely taken your learning, though. And I mean, like you said, it's now reaching outside of the province even. So that, kudos to you.
And it's so great that you have so many different forms of sharing your learning. Like you're teaching, you're traveling, you have a book, you have a DVD. So you were clearly inspired by what you're doing to share in different ways. And that probably, I'm assuming, also came from your skills as a teacher.
It did, yes. Yeah. And you know what? Really kind of breathed new life into my teaching practice too, because I would see an opportunity, I would see something that the association was offering and it was geared to kindergarten. And I was doing kindergarten planning time and I thought, well, I could do this project and I'd love to collaborate with these couple of kindergarten teachers. So it created some really interesting combinations of people coming together and sharing ideas and also improving our teaching practice and then letting that ripple out. And then, the board that we worked for and the school that we worked for would say, could you provide this PD for our kindergarten teams? So I really feel like that many people benefited from us exploring a topic together and then sharing. It's not like we had the expertise. We shared with each other. We sort of became facilitators and went and attended courses together as part of the grant opportunity and came back and shared that. And that's how I first was introduced to the teachings of Dr. Stuart Shanker in the Merit Center, and where he's one of the top experts on self-regulation in education.
All right, I have to ask about self-regulation. I mean, this is an area where I feel as though the word anxiety and the word stress is used, but the counter to that is to be able to self-regulate. And that's to some degree could be the missing link. So I would love to hear more about the work that you've done on self-regulation and how you feel it's impacted the classroom space. But beyond that, how that benefits the teacher and how just what that looks like.
So self-regulation is often misunderstood. People think of, okay, regulation as being quiet, being calm. And really self-regulation is about energy management. It is about managing stress and energy. It's not just being quiet. We may need to be upregulated or have some activation to meet the demands of a certain academic task or something that we're doing in the classroom. And at other times, we might need to be down regulated or, have that balance. So it's about meeting the demands of what's necessary in the moment. We want engagement, we want learning. We don't need quiet. Quiet doesn't mean that kids are learning.
I feel like it's about being able to direct yourself, and we're helping kids learn how to direct themselves. I mean, it is an actual learning skill on the report card. So if you look deep into that, yeah, I mean, you could mistake it for, am I sitting still? Am I not doing this? Am I not doing this? But it is more about, am I able to recognize what I'm doing and direct myself to where I want to go?
Chelsea, that's a super powerful word that you brought up too, is am I able to recognize? Because we want kids to go to reflect and to know their inner states and not for us to be pointing it out. and not thinking that we can give them stickers and rewards to enable regulation. We want it to be an internal process. So the way that they develop that and the way that we develop that is being co-regulated, like with an adult or another person that has a nervous system that is balanced or that is able to manage their energy. So, but by giving them those experiences where they are co-regulated as somebody that is guiding them, that's modeling all of that. And the brains read brains. And it's having a calm, not a calm nervous system, but a regulated nervous system guiding that process that students are then able to do it for themselves eventually when they are continually given experiences of being co-regulated, then they're able to regulate themselves.
You're co-regulating me right now. Just so you know, every time I talk to you, Susan, and I've told you this, because if you listen to my voice, there's a lot of like up and down cadence, I think is the word, inflection. I very much, I can be a little bit up, let's say. And so I have to right now acknowledge that we're all different and we all have different energies, and what regulated looks like for one person might look different for another, what their regulated energy might be. But when I talk to you, there's a calm that kind of comes over me. So whatever it is that you do with your voice and your demeanor, whatever energy it is that you're putting out there, it works. I should start speaking really calmly right now to model what I'm feeling. So yes, but then I'm not really myself. And then, so, okay.
Thanks, Alex. But you know what? I've never thought that you were dysregulated. Like, I think, I haven't.
Thank you. No, that's like, honestly, that is the biggest compliment I think I've ever gotten. I genuinely mean that, because I have spent my life feeling like I had to be still and, my voice is too loud or my opinions are too strong. And so I appreciate you saying that as I continue on my journey of self-acceptance and self-regulation. So, yeah.
Keep going.
I'm trying, Chelsea.
You're doing great.
Thanks. So are you.
And if you walk into a classroom and you notice everybody's quiet, okay, and it's just the teacher talking, that doesn't mean that there's learning taking place. When there's engagement, there's group work, there's collaboration, there's questions. You can tell by the body language that the students are engaged. That's what we want to see. There are, some people who have a different gauge of what it looks like to have a classroom that's healthy and where learning is taking place. And this is something that I talk about often at the university too, is teacher candidates are a bit concerned, saying, when I'm going to do a lesson observation, well, I'm not sure, like these kids are pretty hyper or they're this. And I said, I'm looking for engagement. I'm looking for sort of predictability and routine so that the kids know what's coming up next, but also that they're excited about their learning and, they're into it.
Well, I think that's refreshing. And I'm sure that new teachers coming into the profession really do appreciate that. I've heard that from them too, being nervous about what your class should look like. And I know that's how I felt going into it. Now, you are phenomenal, and that is the word for it, phenomenal at engaging students and classroom management. I have seen you lead self-regulation physical activity classes with grades 7 and 8 students, rotating classes coming into the gym, but I've also seen you in the classroom. And every time I am truly in awe. But during this time when you were in our gym and you had these classes rotating through several classes of students, every student was engaged. And I was truly amazed by this. I honestly left there going, how did she do that? Because that was just the greatest thing I've ever seen. What I noticed when you were teaching is when you noticed that someone was hesitant to participate, or maybe just not starting right away, or maybe a little bit off task, you were over there and you were having a conversation with them. But not only were you having a conversation, but you were really showing them how to use the tools you brought in. And it was just a truly inspiring thing for all of us teachers who were there to see. So I'm just wondering, what are these strategies, these self-regulation strategies that you use with your students and with the people that you work with?
Thanks, Chelsea. I'm kind of overwhelmed with to receive that that feedback. Thank you
It's very true.
for, kind of acknowledging that. Um, I mean, I love what I do. And I think, when I think back to when I first started in the classroom, it wasn't always like that for me, but I think, having the experience of being in a classroom every day and then also supplementing and being influenced with some of the people I studied with has really helped me. And also being in the dojo and bringing all of those experiences together. So, one thing that I'm really aware of is that I try to embody the energy that I want to bring into the gym or into the classroom or into the dojo. So if I'm coming in very frantic and scattered, the kids will feel that energy and it'll just be a ripple effect. So I do a lot of work on my own regulation outside of stepping into the classroom. I'm doing restorative things that bring me joy. I know that we talked about this filling up your own cup. You always hear that analogy, but I'm really focused on that. Like, what do I need to be my best? And then I'm going to be a good parent. I'm going to be a good teacher. I'll be a good friend if I am doing things that bring me joy and balance and also restore my physical body, my emotional body. So my friends often tease me about that, saying, okay, like your self-care is like a full-time job because they'll say, what are you up to tonight? And I'll say, well, I have an appointment to go and get an adjustment. I have an appointment with my osteopath, or I'm going to have tea, or I'm going to do drumming. Like I have lots of interests that bring me joy and bring me balance. And, I do notice when I'm not in balance and I'll think, okay, I need more of that, and I like going to the gym. But I'm also aware of maybe when I'm doing too many, like I like to study the 5 elements, but maybe when I'm too heavy on the yang side, I need more yin, need more softness. So I'm very aware of that. And that's a big part of who I am and what I do, and even what I bring in the classroom. I think, what does this classroom need? What does this child need? That's a big, long explanation. But, another really important thing in Chelsea, when you said you noticed me going over to kids who maybe weren't engaged or were kind of holding back a bit or moving back from, is that instead of me taking the approach saying, come on over here, get in, get involved, that like I will quietly approach them because they don't really know me. This might be my first time doing a session for them. And I'll think about safety, of them feeling safe with me, safe in the context, safe in this atmosphere, and develop some rapport and connection. So I'll offer them an entry into the activity that feels safe for them. I remember there was a student sitting on the bench, and so I came over and held a kicking shield and let them kick from that sitting position. And then eventually they got comfortable enough to join in with a partner. But instead of me forcing it, I thought, what's a safe entry for this student?
Yeah, I really noted that, especially since it was a phys ed setting. And I mean, this can apply to any setting. It's sort of the confidence competent loop, right? We want them to feel confident. We want them to feel competent. But the main reason that they're usually unmotivated, or they don't want to do it, I shouldn't say unmotivated, or maybe that just they're hesitant, is it's because they're not feeling confident or competent in that area. So I like that, what you're saying, like start off small, which again can be applied to anything, but in that phys ed setting, it's those sort of quiet, softer approaches to take that often do work.
I have to add on to what both of you just said, and that is I think a lot of teachers, not all by any stretch, tend to lean towards being extroverts. And so, saying, come on in, everybody, that's an inviting thing. It sounds great to a lot of us who may be extroverts. I used to be, I'm not anymore, FYI. And and I think we have to talk about here the power of quiet. There's a book, it's called The Power of Quiet or something along that lines, but that there are introverts, and that call out ruins safety. And you lose the student the second that you put them on the spot, and it might take you 5 seconds to do that encouragement, but for the rest of the class, that student could be sitting there in humiliation. That sounds extreme, but I genuinely,
But it
yeah, all the
happens.
time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come from a place of malice. It comes from a place of really good intention. And so I think, you said earlier about modeling that for the students in the space. And for me as a teacher who is always still learning, and for me to just kind of watch that happen, that modeling, it's a huge lesson. And you had spoken earlier about all the gifts that you've received from collaboration. I mean, I'm a strong believer that when we do work together and collaborate, whether it's just through a conversation on a walk or through amazing opportunities given to us through our association, that you learn many points of view, you learn what other people have experienced, and it's just so enriching, all the conversation and all the learning. So, I mean, I encourage everyone to step out of their comfort zone. I know that I bet you a lot of this was challenging. Like, I'm looking at the list of things you've done, and there's a lot of, I believe, risk taking that ended up happening, a lot of putting yourself on the line a little bit. But I think that, everything that you've done has been really exciting. And again, I add that it's benefited many other people, and that's a wonderful thing. So,
Thanks,
yeah.
Alex. Yeah. And I've enjoyed it. And I mean, I'm thinking about what you said about risk taking. Once I had done a couple of projects, and I worked with some of the same people, I thought, I felt like I wanted to add to our team, and I invited two people to be part of our team for doing a big project with the Ministry of Education and, through the union and school board. But I thought, I'm going to invite these two teachers who I know are open-minded, but maybe they aren't doing some of these things. And I feel like if teachers saw these two individuals on the team modeling these self-regulation processes, they would say, hey, I see myself in them. I think I could do this. And, that was really, I feel, a big shift because, the way that they were maybe perceived as teachers doing things a certain way. And then, their colleagues and then people from even other schools in Ontario saw them modeling these processes. And I feel like that really helped them and helped others to be willing to take a risk and try some things in the classroom that they might not have been open to previously.
I think too, like when you're mid-career, let's say for our younger listeners, you're everything is new and you're trying new things, and you're willing to take more risks because you don't have the fear of the repercussions that happen when the classroom gets wild in the same way. But sometimes I know
Hmm.
for me personally, like hitting kind of stagnant ruts and having to push myself out and try those new things. So I've always found, like Chelsea, for instance, she pushes me constantly. Like it's a bit much actually, and so, and
Correct.
she's pushed me out of my comfort zone. But the benefit has been absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to give a shout out here to Owecta, the opportunities they've provided. As we're sitting here talking, I'm thinking of numerous different projects that I've had the
Mhm.
honor of being a part of, and my learning was, my learning and my colleagues' learning, we followed the learning and we were encouraged to do so. And it's been the best PD I've ever had in my life. So taking all the PD you've learned and all the lived experience you've had, and now that you're in, this new phase of life where life after the classroom, can you tell us a little bit about how now you're living outside of the classroom and how it feels to be running your own programs, to be building your own schedule, and to have the opportunity to inspire others in new ways that aren't so much within the confines of, let's say, the classroom day?
Sure. And Alex, before I forget, I'm just going to loop back to what you just said about the union. I don't even know if I've ever shared this with you, but when I presented my first collaborative learning community project in Toronto to the provincial union, they were the ones who said, this is more than a project. This has to be published. So that's how our first project was published, and we self-published and created this DVD that was supposed to be just a resource for us to present at this conference and to use ourselves in the classroom. And they said, you have to publish this. They said that to me and my colleagues. So I just want to give that shout out too, because that wasn't on our radar. We just thought, oh, this is great. We'll get to use this every year now. We're really glad we took the time to do this, but now it's it's across Canada. There are people in the States who have it.
For someone to recognize and see something and then, say that and that it, is a little seed that was planted and watered, and look at what it's grown
Mhm.
into. And so, yeah, I mean, I think there's opportunities everywhere. And sometimes you just have to take those courageous first steps and have the right people around you giving you the push, right?
Mhm.
It also shows where your passions can lead to, right? Like if you're doing something you
Mhm.
like, you're doing something you love, it can open all kinds of doors for you. So that's really inspiring.
Mhm. So now, I feel like I'm crafting my like every day looks different, even though I do have some predictability in my schedule. I find that, what I'm doing and creating is evolving too. I'm teaching at the university and enjoying my courses, and different things are being added. And, I started off being invited to be part of this team, and now I'm the veteran. The other people that initially got me started are no longer teaching. They've retired, and now there's a new team, and I've been there 4 years. This is going into my fifth year, so that's exciting to just still be really connected to the school systems and to local school boards and some outside of the region, and being able to, in real time look at what's going on in the classroom and then integrate that in my course, bring in scenarios and learn from them, and, the latest research. So that's one component of my schedule. And I'm also creating courses and programs and going out into the community. And I'm integrating martial arts with physical literacy and self regulation, and taking that into schools and community groups, working with people who are recovering from addictions and bringing all of those things together. I'm also, as I mentioned, teaching in my dojo. And I've been teaching internationally too. I've been invited to different martial arts events, and to teach like physical skills, but also to teach how to teach,
Hmm.
how to teach kids, because I'm in a unique position of being, a certified teacher, but also a karate sensei. So I'm able to bring, those frameworks that I've, been studying my whole life, and also having the experiences in the classroom into the dojo. And I've been able to share that. And so I am working on creating some resources to support the wider martial arts community, because I do host events that martial artists come from all over the world to attend. And I'm also being invited to travel and teach. So I've, in the last year, taught in Tennessee and New York. And
Wow.
yeah, so it's exciting.
That's amazing. We talked in our
And
teaching in your 50s episode with Cheryl Harrison, who is nearing retirement. And so she was just talking about getting ready to explore, or exploring, before retirement. If you have something that you're very interested in, can you get little bits of time to pursue these interests? Because you have all of these skills that you develop, to branch them out into all of these different areas, which is something that you have truly done. And that clearly leads to something amazing, especially with you. So that's really good to know.
and I think, there are opportunities you can create for yourself, but it's surprising how many things, you might be asked to do when people hear about, or, see you kind of in action too.
Yeah, we are teachers. And as teachers, our skill set is so vast. We are event planners. We are support systems. We are, as I always say, conductors of a symphony that changes from year to year. We are amazing communicators, amazing planners. We diversify the way we teach and the way that we receive information. We feel out the vibe of the room and the energy that is brought. We have all these skills and talents. And so, when you have that and you marry it with some experience, and you marry it with being able to take your personal interests and passions and weave them in a little bit, you end up with something really amazing. And yes, the opportunities are all around us. So, yes, we are
Hmm.
sought after.
Yeah. So I would encourage anyone, in the education field, if there's something you feel passionate about, it doesn't have to be an education topic necessarily. Like maybe you love baseball or you love reading, like bring that passion into the classroom, see how you might inspire your students. And, they're going to see you in a different light also when they see how lit up you are sharing your passion, and you just don't know what direction that might take you. For my university course, I think it was last year, I wanted to model, like, one of the assignments that we have within the course is the teacher candidates leading a self-regulation process, like something that would be anywhere from 1 minute to 4 minutes, just so they have the experience of embodying that energy in a classroom. And this is some, that they'll reflect on after and get some feedback from their fellow teacher candidates. And so I thought, well, I'm going to model this first. So I did bring in my little karate swords that are safe swords. I did preface it with saying, yes, I know you don't have a hockey bag full of swords that you're going to bring in, but what else could you use if you wanted to do this little slow motion sword activity? It's not like we're going to be doing a full out battle. There are ways of engaging students that are very calming and regulating. And I know, maybe other people, if they heard my plan in advance, would have said, no way, Susan, don't do that. You can't get rulers. You can't arm them with rulers and expect them for it not to be full out chaos. But it's what I've done. I've done it and with all ages. So I did hear some of the students as I was leading this, putting on this slow motion panda kung fu panda music and having them move almost like a Tai Chi way, but with a sword and going different levels, and they were enjoying it. I heard one of my students say, wow, she's all in. And I thought, okay, I I loved that. I thought, okay, they're seeing that. And really, how is that going to influence them?
Yeah.
Is it going to have a bigger impact on them than me talking about this process, or them seeing me embody that energy and be completely fully present in that process is going to impact them further? And, I think about that with all of us on a daily basis with our students, like bringing all of ourselves there.
And I mean, that's empowerment, what you're doing. You're putting that trust in your students to be creative, to come up with something, to use these tools. And it reminds me of our conversation that we had with Mike Traz, who was doing fly tying with the kids. And he was a little bit hesitant to give them hooks and help them to do it. But then he sort of threw caution to the wind and decided, you know what, this is the best way to learn this. And it was a complete success. So when you give the people the tools to learn, it is really exciting and really empowering.
I agree.
And, I'm thinking about this, about giving tools, about having these really rich experiences and having lots of props in the classroom and things that will really be authentic for the students. And when I was leading one of these projects when I mentioned that I added 2 people to the team who were open-minded but weren't doing all of these things in their own teaching practice, I also learned a lot about recognizing other people's comfort level and when they feel dysregulated. Because one of these new team members said to me, okay, that was fun, Susan, but I can't do it that way again. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, I felt so dysregulated. I said, okay, tell me how we could do this differently. So, he mentioned a couple of things that would kind of create more order for him in his nervous system. And I said, you know what? We can do that. And it would still be, I think, authentic for everyone. And maybe I'll feel better too, because I have a different comfort level. And my nervous system operates a bit differently. But, I want to honor that. And, that's something that I've carried on. And when I see him and when we connect, I share that with him. Hey, I'm still doing it this way. This has really provided a good structure for the way that I facilitate this movement meditation. Kind of linking it to that there may be people who would say, no way am I bringing fishing rods in to teach this concept. But what would work for you?
Yeah.
What could enhance this and what would work for your nervous system, comfort level? And could you take this bit of a risk? Could you put yourself out there? And it's okay if it doesn't work. We're also modeling that to students too, that, all right, we might need to shift this in the
Oh, yeah. We
moment.
do that all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah,
daily battle.
Yeah.
Interesting as you're talking about that, and I'm thinking about universal design for learning. And this is very much a sidebar, but I find for me personally in my classroom, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm able to keep myself in a good way. And the students are able to keep themselves nicely regulated. You had mentioned earlier that you try not to walk in frazzled, but somehow by Thursday and Friday, I feel whittled down from all the energy that has existed in the school. And I'm organically
Mhm.
coming in frazzled and then frazzling my students a little bit as part of the process.
I think that's a really good observation to share. And one thing that, I mean, what do you think, Alex? Like, just so everyone can maybe benefit from this strategy, what helps you to feel a bit regulated when you feel like that? What's one thing that you do?
I walk
Okay, amazing.
and I walk a lot to burn off the nervous energy that exists in my body.
Is there anyone that you go to talk to?
Yep. I'm beyond rich when it comes to having people that I trust fully that I can go to and talk to, and I have like different people I go to for different things.
Mhm.
But in the school setting, Alex also walks laps in the gym, and then all kinds of staff members join her.
That's amazing.
It's great.
Yeah,
It's
they
helpful for
Yeah.
they don't
everyone.
know they've been entrapped into regulating me. But okay.
Well, you're co-regulating, so
Yes.
that's great. That's what I was, yeah, hoping that you would say that there you did have a go-to person or a couple co-regulators in the school that could help you when you come in frazzled. And I mean, sometimes you don't even have to
Mhm.
talk. Sometimes just standing, if you think about it, I know Chelsea, your kids do sports. Where do you stand in the hockey rink? You know, I think back to my kids when they were playing hockey, when I would think things are getting pretty heightened here. I have one son that's a goalie. I don't really want, I don't want to hear the chatter or have this intensity. And I think, I'm going to go stand over there. And I don't even have to talk to this person or this group, but I feel regulated being near their
Yes,
energy.
I've experienced that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I'll even walk outside the arena a lot.
Yeah.
This is fight or flight. Sometimes you leave
So
the
that's it.
building.
That's it.
Yeah.
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 Well, yeah.
So, Alex, another thing, I share this often with people, and yes, I can be the brunt of many jokes about what I bring in my tote bag to school, but I do, as part of my little regulatory toolbox, and I travel with this too when I'm going out of town, even if it's just for one night. I have this with me. I bring my little infrared mat. I now have a smaller one, and I plug it in and it's very regulating. So I have tools like that that I will use between classes. I will turn down the lights in my office. I even have like a little red light therapy. I'll have essential oil. So I'll have my little toolkit that helps me to regulate during the day too.
Yeah, and you
Hmm.
had mentioned earlier how your friends tease you a little bit about like, oh, you spend all day with your self-regulation. And Chelsea and I, we had a calendar episode, and we talked about how, there's nothing wrong with you valuing and booking in time for yourself and honoring it in the same way as any other commitment, that time to yourself. But I just want to also mention it. Were you able to do that when you were at a different season in your life whereby your kids were younger? Because we talk about that a lot, the luxury and the privilege that comes with a little bit more time once your kids get older in putting time towards the self-care piece.
I think it looked different, but I would still try and use some things to support myself. I would, let's say I'm going to a hockey tournament with one of my kids. Yes, I've got my mat plugged in, or I'm bringing a book, I'm reading it on the bus. I would make sure to do things like that. Now, obviously, I have more time to restore and to pursue things that bring me joy. But, I did my best to do that also along the way because you can't wait. You can't wait till you have all the time. You have to think, how can I have small pockets of regulation or of restoration or creating joy? Can I go and have some good conversations while I'm watching my kids play football? Or can I go for a short walk at lunch at school? And that way my social needs are being met. I'm regulating, I'm getting some exercise.
Well, the other side of
Yeah.
it is if you're not doing these things, then you can maybe feel resentful, or maybe you're edgy. Maybe, you're just not feeling happy about not being able to do the things that you really need to do to fill your well, right, Alex?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, I've been there. And not only do I notice it in myself, but the people around me are noticing it. And that's when the people around you start saying, maybe you should go for a walk. Like my family
Yeah.
members tell me that all the time. And then I come back and I'm like, yeah, that was a good idea.
And another interesting thing that we haven't touched upon is that regulation looks different for everyone. Alex, you regulate in a certain way. Chelsea, something that might work for you might not work for Alex, or different times of the day you might think, oh, but I felt really good before when I did go to this dance class, but now I'm feeling this way. And it's the same for our students. It's very individual and tailored. That's why it's great to have these micro environments in your classroom, or things that they can access, that they don't always have to leave to go to a quiet room, that you have little areas where, yeah, you can work quietly. That's what you need right now. Or you want to stand by the window, or you want to take this clipboard and work in the hallway. I allow things like that also when I'm teaching, because I think, okay, that's what's going to work for them. I mean, we can't allow everything, but what choice can we give? Because having a choice is regulating. Having, your voice is regulating. Having input into what you'd like to do, or that the students would like to do, or how they want to represent their learning. Giving any type of choice is very regulating.
I'm just sitting back and listening and thinking about all the things that I'm going to try in my classroom this year with that lens specifically. And when you were saying that, I threw a wish out there, and then reality came to me. The wish was that within my career, the spaces in which we teach, the buildings would have more spaces like that, or within a classroom. And you have to get really creative, is what I had to tell myself after I had that thought, because I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. So instead of being like, well, I can't, I'm thinking about, I can't do it that way, but how can I do it? Kind of like you said earlier, Susan.
Yes.
Okay, well, to wrap up this conversation, Susan, we're going to ask you for one piece of advice that you'd like to leave with teachers out there, and then we're going to get into the takeaways.
I'd like to share a piece of advice I share with my university students too, is to integrate your passions into the classroom, and also just to pursue any opportunities that are offered, even if they seem outrageous, or if you think, I don't know if I'm good enough, ready enough for that. Throw an application in. If you see an opportunity, say, I'd like to be considered to attend this conference, or to lead this, or to receive this grant, because you never know where it may lead. And there are people to support you in the process. So just be willing to put yourself out there, and like, great learning can come from it. And, a small little experiment or small risk could lead to a big transformation.
Thank you, Susan. That is good advice. And I, for one, plan to do more of that this year. Now, on that note, let's get into the takeaways. Alex, give us your number one.
There's nothing like having a rich conversation with colleagues to explore their learnings. Learning about their learnings reminds you of things that you may not yet know a lot about and you may want to explore. So keep on talking to your colleagues.
Two, mine is pretty similar to that. Watch, observe, and get to know amazing people like Susan Baldassi, Sensei Susan, so that you can see how the skills you develop as a teacher can benefit you now and in your future.
Wow, I love those. My takeaway is from this podcast is how important collaboration is for everyone involved. How we all benefit, how it can inspire us, it can ignite more of our passion, and just really affirm what we're already doing. So I really appreciated being able to collaborate with you today.
We did collaborate, and my well right now, Chelsea, I don't know about yours, but my well is brimming. Like, we're having an overflow well moment. I feel energized to teach this week. My well's full.
Yep, so is mine. Thanks to Susan.
Thanks for listening to the EdYouWell podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend, subscribe, and leave a positive review. It helps others to find us.
Follow us on Instagram and Pinterest to help spread the word. For more inspiration, tips, and book recommendations, just head to the show notes and join the EdYouWell newsletter today. Until next time, be well
and do well.